About 13 years ago, I had a revelation which completely changed my life. After reading almost every personal development book I could find, I came to the sad conclusion that positive thinking in the way that it was sold was a scam. And instead, I discovered 3 things that I should do instead, which has continued to enable my entrepreneurial success until this very day. Number 1, act. Don't think. Robert F. Smith, the richest man in America, said that potential is no guarantee of progress. So here's the paradox. Do you know someone who's full of potential, who is always positive? They're online sharing every positive meme and clip and video that they can find, but they're not actually successful and are a long way from meeting that potential. I mean, we all do. And what I've discovered is if somebody has to act super positive and they are on the bleeding edge of everything to do with personal development and positive thinking, chances are it's a mask or a diversion away from actually doing the work. Or they're covering up something a little bit deeper that they've not managed to resolve, and acting as if they are positive in their thinking overshadows the fact that they're not necessarily positive in their doing. It's a little bit like some of the best comedians of our time we know have used comedy as a way to manage some of their own personal struggles. And even though comedy can be a great outlet for some of those complex issues, it doesn't get rid of the complex issues. In the same way that even though it can be argued that positive thinking can be a great diversion away from some of those challenges, it doesn't get rid of the challenges. Now, on the flip side, have you met somebody who is really successful, but they don't share anything positive, and they aren't on a positive rant every time they see you, and they just seem to be pretty run-of-the-mill? Again, I'm sure we all do. And just because someone doesn't have that hyper-successful persona of a Tony Robbins, often you'll find that that energy that you're looking for in that person who is a success is tempered by the fact that they've had to probably go through quite a lot of loss to get to success. And success hasn't been something that they've inherited or tripped over, that is something that they've earned. And they've realized the cost of success has been more than just positive thinking, but it's actually been doing the hard work. Now, the premise presented by the personal development industry is that positive thinking will lead to positive action, which sounds fair. However, thinking doesn't lead to action. Action leads to action. So in today's entrepreneurial and personal development culture, I've seen the term "I feel" connected with action. So there's an idea that people should feel like doing something before they do it. Now, in the fitness industry, I think they've pretty much nailed the idea that if you don't feel like working out or eating healthily, that actually you've got to make that behavior change, and you shouldn't do it because you feel like it, that you should do it anyway. But in the world of business, I'm not sure we're quite there yet, because people are still connecting a feeling to a doing. And if you try and feel your way to success, you probably won't get there. But if you do your way to success, then you'll have a much better chance of achieving it. During his pilgrimage to Mecca, Mansa Musa is said to have distributed so much gold that the value of the metal decreased significantly in the cities that he visited. He also funded the construction of mosques and other important buildings along his route. This consistent generosity not only benefited the people he encountered, but it also inspired others to be more giving and compassionate. So imagine Mansa Musa just thinking about going on the pilgrimage, just thinking about giving away all this gold, then we wouldn't be recounting this amazing story, which for someone of his ilk, a leader and somebody who is regarded as one of the richest men in the world, there were lots of great leaders, there were lots of rich emperors, but the reason why we talk about Mansa Musa in the way that we do is because what he did with his wealth and the change that he made, not in thinking, but in actually doing, and in the consistency of it. So if I put it into more practical terms, imagine being really positive about learning a new language and you're thinking about it all the time, but you don't put it into action. Or you are really positive about learning a new musical instrument, but you're just thinking about it and you never pick up that instrument and play. So whether or not you feel like taking action, so whether or not you feel like learning the language, let me start all again, this thought. So if you have a consistent plan to learn a new language or a musical instrument, and it means that you've got to practice for 10 minutes a day, I guarantee you there are going to be some days that you don't feel like doing it. And quite possibly there may be more days in the month than not where you don't feel like picking up that musical instrument or learning that new language. But if you remain consistent and you do it whether or not you like it or not, then progress is assured. And the real truth is that success looks like consistency, and consistency looks quite boring. And I always say to people, people that whatever change you need to make needs to look like BAU or business as usual, meaning it shouldn't look like something out of the ordinary. It should look like something that you do anyway. And when you're starting, of course, it's going to look out of the ordinary. People are going to see you learning this new language, starting this new business, and it will become different. But over time, as long as you're consistent, people will connect that activity with your behavior and with your identity. And they will start referring to you as a guitarist or someone that speaks Spanish or someone who is an entrepreneur. Number 3 is to drink coffee later. Dr. Margaret Casely-Hayford, CBE, said in an interview when asked, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be? And she said, I will tell myself to do more. You're young for such a short time. You can pack so much more in and achieve so much more if you use the precious time you're given. Basically, that you can just sit and drink coffee later. So what practical things can you do to encourage yourself to do more? Things that I found that work really well for me is to set a date. If you want to launch something, if you want to start something, put a date in the diary. It's some really good advice that a mentor of mine gave me when we were first launching Ultra. And he said to me, set a date. And we did that. And this magical thing happened when that all of the parts that we needed to come together for this event just seemed to happen because there was a driving force behind it. But that driving force, myself, was pointed towards a specific date, and everyone else revolved around that date. And it happened. I was talking to a mentee of mine just recently, and we were talking about this setting a date because they wanted to launch an online course. And I said, well, look, you should set a date in a few months' time where you will launch your course. And we talked about all the things that they needed to do in order to make this happen. And they said to me that they feel like there's a block. They're not sure what the block is, but there seems to be a block getting them to take action. And I sat them down and said, you need to get rid of that at some point. Now, you could probably brute force and motivate yourself past that block so that you can meet this launch date, but it will slow you down and it will just make things a bit more difficult. And if you don't get rid of the block, it's not going to go away on its own. And even if you can meet this launch date, that block will simply hold you back and slow you down for all of the things you need to do in the future. And it's simply not sustainable. It's a little bit like running a race and you've got a 25 kg weight tied to you. So speak to a friend, seek therapy, ask the audience, whatever you need to do to unearth where that block is coming from. Because if you don't do that, then it won't serve you. And sometimes it's not one big block, it could be lots of little blocks. And to be honest with you, this is a lifetime exercise that many of us have to go through in order to release ourselves from some of the things which are holding us back physically, mentally, spiritually, psychologically, entrepreneurially, whatever it might be. You need to find out what that is, be brave, confront it, find a safe space, find someone who can help you to facilitate and unpack that. Otherwise, your entrepreneurial journey will simply become more difficult than it really needs to be. The last practical thing I can advise is that birds of a feather flock together. And if you want to become more of a positive doer than a positive thinker / procrastinator, then be around doers. Dan Pena, love him or hate him, famously said, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And if you want a less controversial source, King Solomon said, the one who walks with the wise will become wise, but a companion of fools will suffer harm. Now, I'm sure we've heard it before, to be around the types of people that will help us to take the next step in our journey. But practically, what does that look like? Well, I'm afraid you're going to have to come out of your comfort zone. If you don't have friends or networks who are doers, then you're going to have to go and find them. The good news is that with platforms like LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter, or should I say X, we are now in a super connected environment where it's way easier to find individuals who are on a similar journey to you, or who may only be a few months ahead of you, who, trust me, will want to share with you what they've learned to make your life easier. So to conclude, and as a little anecdote for you guys, I'm known in my social circles for going to the gym super early in the morning. And people ask me, where do I get the motivation for doing this? And the answer is, I don't base it on motivation. Do I want to get up at the crack of dawn each morning and go to the gym? No, but I ignore the way that I'm feeling and I get up almost robotically. And by the time I'm halfway to the gym, I'm already feeling good. And by the time I finish that gym session, I feel amazing. So now chasing that feeling of amazing is more important to me than the feeling of having to get up super early. So in fact, it's the other way around. Positive thinking follows positive doing. Positive doing doesn't follow positive thinking, because forcing yourself to think positively every day takes a lot of energy, and it's simply not sustainable, it's not business as usual, and it doesn't provide you with the consistency on a daily basis to meet your entrepreneurial goals. So if that video was useful, please share it with an entrepreneur that you think might benefit from it. Like, comment and subscribe for the algorithm, and I'll catch you on the next video. Ultra and out.